The game of chess is played on a chessboard, just like you see before you, with the pieces set up just as they are now. So what exactly does it mean to play a game of Fischer Random? Well, we randomize the pieces. Now, Fischer Random is also called Chess960. Why is that? Chess960 refers to the fact that when you rebuild the pieces on the first rank randomly, you have 960 possible different positions. Now, why is it even called Fischer Random then? Why not just Chess960? Well, Bobby Fischer was the world champion and probably the most famous advocate for the game. In the 1970s, he was known for playing it in coffee houses with friends, forcing them to dive into his new favorite variation of the game of chess. And in the 1990s, it was officially acknowledged in Buenos Aires in 1996 that Bobby Fischer really was the ambassador for the game and hence given a namesake to follow. Fischer Random Chess, Chess960, regardless of whatever it's called, we have a lot to learn about what it takes to not just play the game, but play it well. And in this video, we're going to dive into not just the rules, but also the tips you need to start playing Chess960 games and winning them right away. Let's jump in. Now, one of the trickiest aspects, and perhaps the only truly different rules that exist in Fischer Random as compared to classical chess, are the rules to castling. To simplify that, we've cleared the board of all the pieces to leave us with only the king for each side and a pair of rooks. One of the rules that formalized itself under the advice of Bobby Fischer was that moving forward, the king would always need to start between the two rooks. This ensures the ability that you will always have the option of castling to either side of the board. So how does castling work? Well, to start, let's say that if white wanted to castle kingside, you could drag the king to the g1 square and literally switch places with the white rook. If black wanted to castle queenside, nothing about the rook's position would change, but the black king would find itself in the end on the square c8. Let's take a look at it. Here we see the finished version of what it would be if white had castled kingside and if black had castled queenside. In our next board, we're going to learn how that process is followed in an online chess game. If you want to castle, all you have to do is pick up your king and drag it either directly on top of the square where the rook stands, or you can go even further all the way to the knight. Let's first see what happens when we drag our king on top of the rook and let them swap places. For black to castle, once again, it would be the same thing. Black could drag his king on top of the rook, or all the way on top of the knight, and after doing so, the king and rook will switch places. One of the key things to note about this example, where both sides have castled, is that even though the queens and the knights officially stand on squares that in classical chess would be in the way of the king and the rook, in Fischer Random Chess, as long as the pieces do not obstruct the final landing places of a completed castle, it does not prevent castling. So as you see, the fact that the knight is on h1 and the queen is on e1, that does not in theory prevent the king and rook from swapping places to complete a traditional castle. And the same is here for the black queen and the black knight. The position of those two pieces do not prevent black from castling because once again, they do not obstruct the final resting place of a completed castle position. Now that we've seen an example of the pieces randomly shuffled along the first and eighth rank, let's take a look at a real-life game plucked from what was considered by many to be the first ever unofficial Fischer Random World Chess Championship match. This took place in February 2018 in Oslo, Norway, between Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen. Now, as we dive into this game, what I want to highlight is that just because the pieces are randomly set up, that doesn't mean that the goals have suddenly become random. Here we see two of the best players in the world follow the principles to start out with a move that attacks the center and opens a piece directly assaulting what is supposed to be the most critical areas of the board. Black castles, and white chooses to do the same. Despite the fact that the king and rook are only switching one square over, note that both Carlsen and Nakamura stress the need for their rooks to be connected, working well with their queen to potentially assault the center. These are classical chess principles we all know and follow, and that is to develop, coordinate, and then ultimately fight for the most critical areas of the board, those being the center. Over the next few moves, both sides did exactly that, in a game that saw an eventual draw, I would argue, because both sides followed chess principles to start their Fischer Random Chess game and fought equally for the center for many moves to come. While our next game wasn't plucked from an unofficial Fischer Random World Chess Championship match, it was a battle that took place between two very strong Grandmasters in St. Louis. In this Chess960 position, we had reigning U.S. champion at the time, Sam Shankland, playing the white pieces, and French number 1, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, playing black. In this position, Maxime chose to follow suit, a la Carlsen and Nakamura, where despite the odd-seeming switch of just a single square of the black king and rook, he chose this coordination of the rooks as a critical piece for his middle game attack, essentially coordinating his heavy pieces for the middle game. Rather than follow suit, however, Sam Shankland decided to play the move h4. At the expense of his own king's position, he's trying to launch a flank attack. It makes sense when you consider that the two bishops are assaulting the black king. However, as we've been highlighting, just because the pieces are shuffled, that doesn't mean our principles have to go out the window with it. And Maxime Vachier-Lagrave shows Sam Shankland that controlling the center and coordinating your king in a classical fashion would have been a much better idea. We're going to jump ahead a few moments to show that despite the fact that Sam was able to expose Maxime's king, ultimately the coordination of the rooks in the center and White's awkward king would tell the story as to who really had a better middle game attack. Maxime played the move knight to c4 ! With devastating intentions. When Sam played knight to d4, he missed the coming combination and the brilliant finish that MVL put on here to end this game in just a few moves. Knight to e3 check, sacrificing the knight in order to force open the f-file. Sam tried to avoid it by taking with the bishop instead of the pawn, but after f takes, with the threat of rook takes f2 checkmate in 1, Sam was forced to play the move knight f3, and he missed Maxime's next move, which comes with devastating effects, a queen sacrifice, e takes f2, double exclamaviach. After knight takes e5, bishop h4, we see the idea. Black doesn't intend to just get pieces for the queen, he intends to go Bob Barker and get the full thing. The king is on the line with threats like f takes e1, double check, and mate. White played the move g3 in order to postpone that fate, but bishop h3 check, forcing rook g2, and then bishop takes g3, renewing the idea of capturing on e1, was enough for Sam to resign. Note that a move like knight f3, trying to close the f-file, once again fails to just renegade awesomeness by Maxime. Taking f3 and then taking e1 is one way that this game would have still ended in a forced checkmate. Now that we've seen a couple of real game examples where very strong grandmasters followed classical chess principles like get your king safe, get your pieces coordinated early, and attack the center, we should feel more prepared to go play a Fischer Random game and confident that the tools we've developed to play well in classical chess can help us win Chess960 games too. In our last example, before we bring this video to a close, we wanted to show you a very, very funny position that highlights the awkward position of the black king, who didn't get himself out of the center in time, and perhaps forgot his opponent's ability to castle. In this position, rather than fix the problem of the king being awkwardly placed on an open line in the center, black brought the bishop to a square that attacked the white rook on f1, only to find white shock him by castling right in the middle of the board. White brings the king, just as we learned, right on top of the rook on c1, and in doing so, we see the king and rook switch places, and white immediately deliver a devastating check. Black postponed the checkmate as long as he could with the move bishop to d3, rook takes d3, but ultimately found his end on the e-file, where we see a very awkward, rather humorous example where a castles in a game of Fischer Random Chess leads to a forced checkmate. Now that you know all the rules to how to play Fischer Random, and of course you're excited to deliver your own checkmate by castles in the middle of the board today, head over to Chess.com, select the Play tab, at the Chess.com live arena. Find the 960 option in the dropdown rather than standard chess. Choose your time control, click play, and away you go. Of course, if you're interested in playing in a Chess960 tournament, we have them going all the time under our Tournaments tab, and you can find them anywhere you see the little Chess960 icon, ready for you to get started right away. While we know this video may have brought some new ideas your way, the earliest versions of shuffled chess actually date back as far as the 1790s, and FIDE acknowledged Chess960 as a variant to their great game in 2008. Then they announced their support of the first ever Fischer Random World Chess Championship in April 2019. And if you don't believe me, look at these tweets by some great young players who all agree that Fischer Random or Chess960 may be the future of our great game. So get started and consider playing Chess960 or Fischer Random Chess today, and we hope to see you doing it on Chess.com.